Welcome back to the Lucky Orange Show. I'm Sean McCarthy from the team here at Lucky Orange, and today's topic is one that's becoming more and more necessary as marketing budgets get stretched thinner and thinner and data privacy restrictions get tighter and tighter. People are looking for some way to take more advantage of their existing customers, and they're looking to grow that all-important, sweet brand awareness. So today's topic is loyalty programs, VIP points, all of that sort of thing where we can take more advantage of our existing customer base. And I'm super excited to have Tim Peckover from the team at Smile with me today. Tim, hi, how are you, and welcome.
Sean, thanks for having me. It's I'm happy to be here and chat with you guys. It's been a long time coming, so it's good to finally get on.
I'm glad that we could finally connect. So, I kind of teed it up here that I think loyalty programs and the concept of taking more advantage of the existing customer base is becoming more and more necessary for a lot of businesses. But I want to start by, looking at maybe what are some signs that a brand or a business could benefit from deploying a loyalty program.
I mean, we often talk to businesses and see merchants that they want to start loyalty like right from the ground up. And we love when those conversations happen when they're thinking about loyalty at the beginning. But when you look at the order of operations, typically of when merchants are launching a store, you need an ESP. That's like a must-have to get started. You need to have like product reviews. You need to have returns. You need to have a source of data. And it's not really until they've kind of surpassed the like, hey, I'm just going to focus on acquisition, that they start to think about retention, that they're thinking, okay, what are the different retention plays that I can look into? And that's when loyalty comes along. So we like to be involved from the beginning as much as we can, but there comes a tipping point, usually when you're around a couple hundred orders per month, depending on the brand, obviously, that, they need to shift that focus, not, the whole retention is the new acquisition isn't really true. You have to be acquiring customers, but there comes that tipping point where you need to be focusing on retention just as much as acquisition in order to actually scale things.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because I think that at Lucky Orange, we're a website optimization tool. And so a lot of times people can view optimization as a nice to have, or as something that you bolt on and only get into when you have the time or the amount of traffic you need or whatever. But I do agree that it makes sense if you can build out that loyalty program as a part of your offer from the beginning. It feels like it could have a much easier path to being successful for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and optimization is similar, right? Where, if a merchant is launching a store and they're thinking about how can I keep my conversion rates completely optimized, like from the start, that's way better than them getting to a point where like, shoot, I need to fix this broken optimization. I need to fix this conversion and then looking for a solution. If they're thinking about it from the beginning, that's way better for everyone. It's great for you guys, but like they're only going to benefit from in the long term. So loyalty is similar, where, launching a referral program from the start helps with like some initial awareness, having, some points to kind of have those early customers build up that points balance is great. But then there comes a point where they need to think about, okay, how is loyalty part of my more holistic marketing strategy, my more holistic retention play? And so that's often when we're coming in, when they're thinking about it, when they start to focus on retention. But, the earlier, the better for sure.
And I imagine there are some people out there listening who would say, yeah, I think that it would be great to have one of those programs in place. But there might be some common objections. Do people approach this and say, yeah, we'd like it, but it sounds like a lot of work? Or what are some other things that people bring to the table that may or may not actually be true as far as objections go to implementing a loyalty program?
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head that often it seems like it's a lot to manage, because there are a lot of really complicated integrations and setups where figuring out, okay, how do I get this on my site? How do I get it connected with the tools? How do I make sure that I'm giving the right points per dollar and all that, the math that can go into it? So we try to make that as simple as possible, whether you're a new brand or you're doing, hundreds of millions in sales, that like it's a simple solution where you can get it set up in not even just days. You can set it in minutes if you want. And, we have the insights to be able to give you some benchmarks that what are other folks in your space doing? Look at some case studies of other folks in your space to make it as simple as possible. That's really typically the biggest barriers. It seems like a lot. And obviously there does to be some planning going into it, but, we want to make it as simple as possible so that you can get up and running ASAP, you can start bringing those customers back as soon as possible and getting the value out of the software. I've said it too many times, but as soon as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to get too far down the road without giving you a chance to kind of pitch Smile and explain a little bit. Maybe that's a good in there to say what makes Smile such an easy platform to use. When I was preparing for our conversation, I noticed that you guys have been used by over 70,000 Shopify stores, and that's a big time number. There's a lot of Shopify stores out there, but that's still a big time number. And so I'm curious if you could tell me just a little bit about Smile, kind of what's within the platform and what makes it a great solution for not only Shopify, but also Wix and BigCommerce and Shopify Plus stores.
Yeah, like you said, we've been around for quite a while. First, we were Sweet Tooth Loyalty, and then Smile. There's over 100,000 brands now across Shopify, BigCommerce, and Wix. And what I was saying before is really Smile in a nutshell. Is we want to be a simple to use, easy to implement loyalty program for commerce in general, e-commerce, point of sale as well. We are in the Shopify, BigCommerce, and Wix platforms, so we're kind of limited on there. But really, our goal is commerce in general, and how can we make sure that businesses are businesses spend so much money to acquire customers, to get them through the door. They're optimizing their website to get that first purchase. And how can we make sure that those shoppers are coming back and not just waiting for the next sale?
Earlier, you mentioned that this stuff can get complicated when it comes to really implementing any sort of new, broader program within a business. When it comes to a loyalty program specifically, though, what are some ways that people can segment their audience properly to make this kind of an effective thing from the get-go?
Yeah, it does really depend on the category that the business is in, especially when you're looking at smaller sales cycles, CPGs, like, cosmetics, food and beverage. It's a little bit different compared to fashion or once you move into more luxury goods. But the two areas I would say that are typically the best and make the most sense to segment from early on is, you've got your first time customers and segmenting them your first time from everyone else. Because that's where your loyalty program is going to drive the most value, is trying to get those first time purchasers and moving them into that repeat purchase that second time. And then once they've made that second purchase, then there's different marketing plays with your loyalty program that you can do to keep them coming back again and again and again. There's stats. I don't have the list, listed right here, but typically we've seen that when shoppers come back, the more times they come back, the more they spend. They spend more often. And so just getting them over that hump of they made one purchase, how can we get them back? You can try to start that waterfall of gaining more momentum. So that's one segment that's typically helpful. And then kind of on the back end of that is figuring out, who are your, whether you call them super fans or your like upper crust VIPs or whatever you want to call them, the ones that they spend a lot and they spend more often. If you have a VIP program set up, it's really easy to figure out who those shoppers are because they've hit that top VIP tier. If you're just doing regular points, then you kind of have to figure out, okay, how many purchases would we consider that person to be like a super fan? And then you can kind of treat them accordingly. But I would say those two segments, just separating your first time shoppers from everyone else, and then figuring it out from there, who are my VIPs that I want to treat a little bit extra because they do drive so much business, I think are the two biggest ones.
And how do you go about coming up with the offer? I mean, obviously, you don't want to cut too far into profitability, and there's some other factors to consider. But what do you recommend when people start to think about how to shape up a specific loyalty offer?
Yeah, it always comes down to the individual store metrics. What is your average order value? What kind of margins are you working with to make sure that you're giving something that is valuable for your shoppers, but also not cutting into your margins too deeply. That's just strictly on like the points value side. There's a psychological effect called the trivialization effect, where if you ask someone to do something, but the reward that you're offering them is too small, then it's just not valuable for them. It came from a study where after, I believe it was folks were leaving like a hotel and someone asked them to like fill out a survey, and in exchange, they would either get like a nickel or like just like a Hershey's Kiss, and people didn't want the nickel. They felt more thanked when they got the chocolate than a nickel, because it made it so trivial that it's like, oh, here, do this thing. It's not really worth much to us. Just take a nickel. The same kind of thing can happen with a loyalty program, where if you're giving a super, super small percentage back, then like shoppers know that they're kind of being hosed, that it's just like, okay, this isn't really valuable for me. This is just that you can say you have a loyalty program. So knowing how healthy of a percentage back you can give is important to figure out. And then you can kind of, when we look at the best performing loyalty programs, they're giving, 3 to 5% back in points. Some go as high as 10 when they have really healthy margins, because they would rather give away that extra margin and keep those shoppers coming back than, be a little on the slimmer side and then risk not bringing those shoppers back. So it's really just looking at your numbers. Our team is really great at talking to merchants and getting the data. We've got templates that we can fill out to figure out, hey, what is the optimal percentage back to give? But that's just all on the point side. And then there's all of the intangible or the experiential rewards that you can give out as well. Where if you look at some of the biggest loyalty programs in the world, like Starbucks and Sephora. Sephora is a great one because they do these really big community events where they actually like have their top VIPs come for an in real life event. And those kind of things, it's hard to put a number on what to give them, but, even giving, early access to sales or, input into the product decision-making process, those can really help build loyalty, and they don't really cost you anything, but it kind of like makes your VIPs feel like they're behind the scenes, they're part of the brand journey, and they're getting something that the average shopper who's just going to like buy from sales isn't going to get.
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of goes back into the brand awareness side of things where, of course, you may not be able to measure it as easily. You may not be able to reward these things as easily, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about leveraging a loyalty program for brand awareness specifically.
Yeah, there's a few different tactics, I guess, you can use with loyalty programs that can really help with brand awareness. Referral programs can kind of help with that because you can run them like quasi affiliates or, just having people spread it word of mouth. But as far as being more broad in awareness, bonus points campaigns are a really big one where, you can schedule, this weekend only get, 2-3 times the points. And then that's an offer that you can market. You can put some ad money behind it. You can pump it on socials. You can blast it to your list to get forwarded out. So that's a big one that we've seen brands do a lot of. And then the other thing is what I was talking about before is those really high value or high perceived value experiential rewards, where if you're able to do something that's really cool or really out of the box and treat your VIPs, they're able to talk about that on social media and kind of do the marketing for you. I always think of the Starbucks, the red cups, or back when they used to do the physical cards that you would get with their loyalty programs. When you hit the gold status, they would send you an actual gold card. I have one in my wallet somewhere still. And people would just like post pictures of their gold card on social media. And the cost for Starbucks is super low on sending that card out, but the amount of awareness about their program just like would skyrocket because it's people just posting it organically. So if you're able to replicate the same kind of feeling, the same kind of, VIP exclusive feeling with your shoppers, without having to break the bank, then that can spread some brand awareness without having to throw a whole bunch of marketing money behind it either.
Yeah, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And I think somebody listening will probably agree that you need to treat your VIPs well and maybe even give them more and treat your purchasers, your return purchasers with your loyalty program. On the flip side, though, are there groups of customers or groups of your parts of your audience that you see people including in loyalty programs that for one reason or another, you may actually recommend keeping out of the program offers?
I think the ones that you have to be the most careful about are the ones that are just going to be kind of hunting for the sales. So, we've talked for a long time about the death spiral of discounting. So that's when, you have shoppers that they're just going to get the sale and then they're going to wait around for the next sale that's going to be the same, or they need an even better sale. And I wouldn't say necessarily that you should exclude them from your program, because in an ideal world, all of your shoppers are earning points, and then you're just doing the marketing to try to bring them back to redeem them. But those are the ones to watch out for, where you're not going to get everyone to come back as much as it would be great to be able to bring every single shopper back. There's the ones that they're just going to pop in and they're only there for the deal. And, you're just kind of wasting your time and your marketing budget if you're trying to pull all of them in to try to get them to come back, because they don't care. They're only there for the sale. So those are the ones I would say you should, not exclude, but at least watch out for. Is if you're running a sale, especially around like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, if you're running deeper sales, those shoppers are going to be the more price sensitive ones. That is going to be harder to get them to come back because they most likely only ordered because of those discounts.
Yeah, and it probably depends on the product as well with that specifically. I can think, I usually buy like skincare products once a year on a Black Friday sale. I buy a large amount of it, but it's also 50% off or whatever the discount is. And I come back to it. And there's another brand, Beauty Brands, I think is the name of the store, and they do something called the Leader Sale. I have known for years, I think they still do this, people will just go and buy the shampoo that they probably need for a year, and it's deeply, deeply discounted. And so it likely depends on, the type of product you have as well. And even if you put those people in a rewards program, like you said, they're probably just going to come back when they come back the following year. That's not to de-incentivize the big sale. It's just to think carefully about where your offer lives within the typical customer's journey, I imagine.
Yeah, when we see something similar with luxury goods too, where, if you're buying, Tushy is a good example. You're buying a bidet. You're only going to buy so many bidets for your house before you've got all of your toilets on a bidet. But they still have a loyalty program because they have all of the upsells, the cross sells, all of the smaller price goods apart from their hero product that they want to push in between your larger purchases. So they have, their little like stool and I think like a stand, and like they have all these accessories that those are the things that they're using their loyalty program to hook you into. Is you've got all these points from your bidet purchases. If your points expire in a year, what are you going to do with those? Instead of letting them expire, there's some loss aversion where, okay, I'm going to make a smaller purchase on one of these smaller price goods in between larger purchases. And, you see similar things with other luxury goods, even like luxury apparel, where I'm going to get a whole bunch of points from my big purchases. And then in between my big purchases, I'll cash those points in for some smaller ones. And that just keeps the brand top of mind. It keeps me coming back. It makes it more likely that I'm going to come back to the same brand when I want to make that larger purchase again.
We mentioned earlier that your offers can't dip too far into profitability. And obviously on the business side, there's a lot that goes into determining what your offers should be. When it comes to measuring KPIs of a loyalty program, though, what's something that you see people either overvaluing or undervaluing as an indicator that their loyalty offers and program is doing what they expect it to do?
I think the KPI that we always push, that it's, if you aren't like familiar in the loyalty space, it's not one that you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a typical marketing KPI, is the redemption rate. And that's, the amount of how many points am I giving out versus how many of them are being cashed in to get an actual reward with it. And that comes back to that trivialization effect, where if you're giving out all these points, but I have to redeem all of my points just to get like a $5 coupon, and I've spent $1,000 with you, like no one's going to spend the time or like come back to your brand enough to earn the points to cash that in. So looking at what your overall redemption rate is a great way to figure out, okay, are the rewards that I'm offering my shoppers valuable enough? Does it resonate with them? Am I just offering them, discounts on orders when really, a free shipping option would be more valuable, or, cashing them in for an exclusive product that only our loyalty members can redeem? Figuring those kinds of things out, it's going to be very brand specific to see what actually resonates with our shoppers. And as much as your loyalty program should be easy set up and easy to implement, you do need to keep checking back and checking those numbers to see, as we're running different sales, as we're doing campaigns, what's moving the needle? When does our redemption rate go up? Do we need to integrate with some new tools to get our loyalty program in front of more of our shoppers? And so, yeah, I would say redemption rate is the number one thing that you need to look into when you launch a loyalty program. And before you're in the loyalty space at all, it's not necessarily a KPI that you would have even heard of.
If I remember correctly, you've been at Smile for more than a few years. Is that right?
Yeah, almost. It'll be 6 this summer.
I'm curious, there's a lot that's happened in the world in the past 6 years. I'm curious if the offers that work and redemption rates and all these things, if you've seen an evolution of that based on these sort of macro, either economic factors or whatever. are people's consumer behavior, is it shifting as maybe more pressure is on their own budgets? Is it easier to get people in programs or harder? Are there any trends that you've seen on the loyalty side of things that have shifted in the past few years?
I think it was very unprecedented times over the past few
Sure.
years, but
Yeah.
I think it's been a pretty clear correlation between, we saw fewer POS rollouts with loyalty, in 2020, 2021, and then they started to ramp back up. And kind of right along with that was when more of these in real life VIP experiences started to roll out too. I remember there was brands pre-pandemic where, their top VIPs, they would be like, oh, well, if you hit so many points, we'll fly you out to our headquarters and meet the team. And those sort of experiences kind of disappeared for a while, and they're starting to come back. Meanwhile, when we weren't doing as many things in real life, there was an influx of kind of behind the scenes perks, whereas get access to our private Facebook group or our private Instagram only for our VIPs. And that was a way to kind of bring people in without having to actually bring them in, and using those as an exclusivity tool when you didn't have the option to actually meet with people in real life. And so obviously, as over the past 2 years, as things has really opened up, we've seen a lot more POS integrations, especially with loyalty integrations, a lot more in real life events where they're combining the two. We've seen some really cool applications of loyalty with using a tool called Novel. They're membership cards on using your Apple or Google Wallet and connecting loyalty to that. So there's an actual physical on your phone implementation of loyalty. So it's been kind of the ingenuity has kind of started to come back of hey, if the world is your oyster now, how can we use API access, or how can we use different new integrations to do cool things in loyalty?
Yeah, that's super cool. One of the last questions I was going to throw your way was, what are you most excited about right now? It sounds like that's an exciting space, though. There's innovation happening within the rewards area, both from all the technology that's coming about, but also just the cultural shifts and willingness to do things. Is there anything else out there, though, that's got Tim super excited right now?
I think as nerdy as it sounds, the pace that Shopify has been releasing features with all of the additions content has been really exciting. Being able to work alongside them on some things like checkout extensions.
Right.
There's really cool features that are available for merchants now, and they used to be, only available for Shopify Plus, and now some of them are working their way down. I'm excited about those kind of things because it does open up a lot of that innovation for, you're not a super small fresh start of your store brand, but you don't have hundreds of millions and a full marketing R&D team to be able to do all of this research on and product development. But Shopify is now just giving you the features to be able to do cool things, and that's really exciting. I love finding when merchants are doing something really interesting with loyalty, with their API access. Something that we wouldn't have thought of, or they're like, oh, I saw so-and-so big brand doing this, and so I wanted to try it myself, and they figured out kind of workarounds with Shopify Flow or something like that to do something cool. That's really exciting for me, as nerdy and e-commerce as it is. That's exciting.
No, I love that. Can you unpack, in case somebody that's listening is a Shopify merchant, my understanding is that Smile can be added to the actual checkout process and the checkout cart. Can you, based on some maybe the recent checkout extensibility stuff, can you just kind of overview that for us to make sure that people understand what you're talking about there?
Yeah. So, historically, your loyalty program either lived in the widget, we call it launcher and panel, or, you had a landing page that explained what your loyalty program was. And that was kind of the extent of your interaction with the loyalty program. Now with Shopify's checkout extensions, both in the checkout or even on the product pages, you can use Shopify app embeds to actually have some live loyalty program stuff right in there. So on your product page, you can show, oh, you would earn X number of points for buying this shoe. Or in the checkout, you can see how many points you're going to earn for a purchase. Or if you have loyalty points, you can actually, right in the checkout, select how many points you want to redeem, do the redemption right in the checkout. after you've purchased, on that order confirmation screen, you can even show shoppers, this is how many points you earned for this order. You can have that embedded in the account page. There's all these places now where it's really easy to just like inject and embed some loyalty program data, apart from the places where you would have before in the launcher and panel or a loyalty landing page.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, you're basically making it to where there's no excuse to not at least give it a try and to not start a loyalty program, especially if you're a Shopify merchant. I'm curious if there's anything else coming up soon from Smile that you want to mention before we wrap.
There's a few things in beta that we haven't done a huge, big marketing push for yet. I mentioned earlier about bonus points campaigns. It's not a new feature. Merchants have been doing it for a long time, but we've just kind of released a way for them to do it a lot more easily in the back end of Smile. I'm trying to think of what I can actually talk about. We also just revamped our Klaviyo integration, which is really cool. So there's a whole bunch of loyalty data and loyalty events that we had an integration for years. And so we just improved it with the Klaviyo team quite a bit, cool. Especially with some of the Klaviyo flows to make segmenting a lot easier, being able to trigger some events. The world of what you can do with Klaviyo and your loyalty data is pretty wild, especially after the update. So if you haven't checked out the new Smile Klaviyo integration, I would suggest you give that a look.
Very cool. Well, smile.io, if you want to learn more about the platform, where can people connect with you and follow along with anything you're talking about, Tim?
I am on LinkedIn and Twitter, Timothy John Peckover. I go the full name on both of those. Those are my primary ones. I'm not on TikTok, not really on Threads. But yeah, LinkedIn and Twitter, or X, I guess we're supposed to call it now.
Okay. Well, we won't look for you on Threads, but everywhere else, give Tim a follow along with everything. And obviously there's a lot of cool stuff coming from Smile soon. So follow along with Smile as well. Tim, thank you so much for carving out time in your day to chat with me.
Sean, thank you for having me. It was great that the stars finally aligned.
Yeah, awesome. Have a good one.